Israel. Maseches Bava Kama Daf Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis. Say, get out. But I tell everyone to get in. The Shiur today is for the Mazal Tov and Beit Neman Israel. There's a couple getting married tonight. Yoel, which is Joel, it's a girl. Joel Miriam Bat Simcha Rachel and her Chatan Yaakov Ezra Ben Yitzchak Mordechai. They should build a Beit Neman Israel and Refuah Shlema to Esther Ruth Bat Bonina. Okay, so let's go. We said yesterday that if someone steals a mitzvah from his friend, one person is supposed to do a mitzvah, and that mitzvah was snatched away from him. Yeah, you're supposed to, let's say, cover the dam of the animal because you're the shochet. Came some smarty pants, some yachne, came and he dafka did it instead of you. He has to pay you asar zehuvim. He has to pay you 10 zehuvim. That's a lot of money. Says Tosfos. Today we're starting with Tosfos. Tosfos. The Chiur of Rabban Gamliel, if you want to, we can sit inside. Maisa be'echad, 3 lines from the bottom of Tosfos. The very, very bottom of Tosfos, in the bottom of the page, it says Tosfos Maisa be'echad shekro shatz likros besefer Torah. A person once was called to the Sefer Torah. Ya Amud, Reuven ben Kalman Levi Mendelovsky, whoever, yeah. And then v'kodam v'korah. All of a sudden, chutzpah, instead of Reuven ben Kalman Zalman, came another guy. Yeah. Maybe, but he knew that he was wrong, and he came and he ran into the bima and snatched the kriya away from him. The aliyah, he took away my aliyah. Ay. That's a big one. The Sholo Rabbeinu Tam, they asked Rabbeinu Tam what to do. The Omar Loi, Rabbeinu Tam told him, Sheiten Loi Tarnegoilis, give him a chicken. The thief of the bracha should give him a live chicken lishchoit. So he should shecht it. The one that the aliyah was stolen from, he should get the tarnegolis, the chicken, to shecht. You stole 2 brachas away from me. You stole 2 brachas from Kalman. Yeah. Now you have to give him an item to recite 2 brachas. And guys, we're recording. We are recording. Thank you. Yeah. Shtei brachos. You get it? You stole 2 brachos, you have to give 2 brachos back in the form of a chicken. Which 2 brachos? Shchita and kisui adam. I assume these are the brachos. But 3, Rabbeinu Tam's friend does not believe that this is a good time. He says, if so, why did we say in the case of the Gemara, Rabban Gamliel, Bashchita of the dam, gave us our zehuvim? Sorry. So he says, why did Rabban Gamliel actually say, why did Rabban Gamliel charge money in the case of the Gemara in Chulin Daf Peizayin? Why not offer an alternative mitzvah instead of money? The Oid Poto Rabbeinu Tam, he says another reason Rabbeinu Tam actually pattered him, that Rabbeinu Tam exonerated him and didn't ask him to pay money, only the chicken. In other words, the fact that you missed the aliyah is not necessarily such a bad thing. Why? Because the one who gets the aliyah, he makes the bracha. The one who listens and says omen is greater than the mevarich. Yesterday, my wife showed me a video. You see Rav Chaim Kanevsky Zatzal in the Rebbetzin. She says brachas and he says omen. Very, very beautiful. Yeah, so she says the brachas get her own brachas, and he says omen on each bracha. So the omen is greater than the actual bracha, so you didn't lose much by losing the aliyah, so don't get overly excited. Another reason to be lenient, the bebavel ain't donin milsa de les bechesron kis, as we said before, which means in Bavel, and also in medieval France, and also in Israel, Tafshin Pei Beis, we do not actually charge, we don't make din. We're the end of Tosfos. Yeah, we don't charge people for causing loss, which is not really a loss. Which means if you took money from someone or you injured someone and made him incapable, you caused a loss that's a lack. There's something missing, a deficit. You have to pay back, even in Bavel. But since in Bavel the Bate Dinim are not real smicha, we only do shlichus of those in Eretz Yisrael. The smicha that we have today is not the real smicha that they used to have back then. Therefore, our powers are limited. And if somebody stole a mitzvah, it didn't really steal anything tangible. It didn't steal anything, real and precise and clear and concrete. And therefore, there's no din. However, he still told him to give the chickens. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess that was some kind of like a semi-compensation. But no, asara zehuvim, the big amount, that's only in the times of the Gemara and times when the Mashiach will come. But as of now, we do not we don't deal, we don't judge cases of lawsuits that don't involve real loss, but only, the more esoteric things. That's the end of Tosfos. So, moral of the story: don't steal a friend's mitzvah. If your friend's supposed to do a mitzvah, don't be do gooder, and don't take the mitzvah away from him. Let him do the mitzvah. Okay, back to the Gemara. We're in the Tudat Zehut. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the bottom of the page. Are the two dots Omar Rav? It's not Omar Rav Dikla. It's Omar Rav. Rav. The bottom of the page. Sadi Aleph Amud Beis. No, that's the bottom of the page. Sadi Aleph Amud Beis. Bottom of the page. This shiur is also obviously Lunishmas of Imorim Menachem Ben Akiva and Leufwas Rachanoilot Ben Tomo. Amar Rav, says Rav, we're talking now more about the halachas of Bal Tashchis. We spoke yesterday in the previous part of the page about Bal Tashchis, do not destroy things for no reason, or not even for a semi-good reason. And now we're going to see more on that. Amar Rav, says Rav, Dikla de Toan Kaba, if you have a dekel, a palm tree, that yields a kav, that has in it a kav, that a kav is a size of how much? Depends who you ask. The kav, according to Reb Chaim Noe, is 1.380 kg. Yeah, and according to the Chazon Ish, it's 2 kilos 400. So that's a kav. So we're talking a bit between 1.400, 1.380, and 2 close to 2.5. This is what we're talking about. Yeah, I'm sure everybody here knows what kilos are. Dikla de Toan Kava, also if the palm tree is one that yields that amount of fruit, it has that amount, that weight of fruit in it, then you're not allowed, you're not allowed to cut it off. That's called Bal Tashchis. It says in the Torah, do not destroy the tree. Okay, so the level, the quantity, quality of the tree you're not supposed to cut off, to fell, is the dekel that contains a kav, one kav, between 1.3, something, 2 and 4. Mesivi. What? Yes, it's not a big amount. It's true. For an entire palm tree, I'm not a big maven in botany, but I think so too. An entire palm tree, just between 1 and 2 kilos, more or less, is not that. And even that's already bad enough to cut off the dekel if you need it for other reasons. Let's say you want the dekel and you say, no, I want to use the trunk of the dekel because I want to make a nice, table out of the palm tree trunk. What? It's not wood. Okay. Okay, you're saying it's not even usable for, right, it's true, it's all like layers and layers. Okay, so you want to do it, you want to use it for fire. Whatever you want to use it, you're not allowed to cut it off. Basically. Frag the Gemara and Rav is in a moiro, and now we're going to challenge him from a bryce. Basically, how much should the zayis yield? The zayis is an olive tree, which can be used for furniture, of course. How much should be on the olive tree in order for the olive tree to be protected halachically? You're not allowed to cut it off. Roiva is a quarter of a kav. How much is a quarter of 1.38 or 2.4? That'll leave for you people. Anyway, a quarter of a kav, which is a quarter of a kav, is already osur. Why are you telling me an entire kav? We see a much smaller amount. A quarter of a kav, a quarter of a kilo, more or less, is already, or half a kilo, is already osur to cut the tree. Why are you telling me an entire kav, Rav? And says the Gemara, well, didn't you notice the difference? I spoke about the palm tree, and the Brisa talks about olive tree. Shiny zeisim de chashivi. Because olives are more chashuv, because olives are important and considered to be a high quality fruit and more expensive, especially in Bavel, by the way. Rav spoke in Bavel. Yeah, Bavel, you should know, it says in Gemara of Basra, I think in the third parak, most trees in Bavel were palm trees. Yeah, you walk around Bavel in the times of the Gemara, maybe today too. If you go to Iraq, I don't know, I've never been there from some reason. It's mostly palm trees. It's a very commonly grown tree, but a zayis is something more special and expensive. And therefore, by a zayis, more quality, less quantity. A zayis is so choshev and expensive that even a quarter of a kav is already considered important enough to protect the tree, make it a protected species halachically. 350 grams. Using if you go to Chaim Noah, 350. Of course, I knew it. How do you assess it? I don't know. Well, once you took it off, then maybe they can cut it. No, actually, no, because it's going to regrow. Good question. I don't know. It's being assessed. I don't know if you look at it or I don't know. I hear the question. I guess a good person who's a big mavin would probably know how to look and assess. I guess that's not me. I'm an urban boy, like most of us. Omer of Chanina. We actually had a palm tree in front of our house. Two of them in Tel Aviv. We had two of them. Once my father took a lulav from there. We didn't have to buy lulav. We got a lulav from this palm tree. Allah v'shalom. Omer of Chanina. Sad story. Who wants to hear a sad story? Omer of Chanina. Lo shachiv shivchas bri. The only reason why my son Shivchas, or some people call him Shikchas, the only reason why he died, obviously died early, because his father buried him. You know why he died? I know there's only one reason. Because he cut off a fig tree before its time. I don't know what before the time means. I didn't see it in any Meforshim. I assume the fig tree maybe at some point gets very old and doesn't yield fruit anymore. I don't know. So this fig tree was still young enough, young and pretty, and that fig tree could have and actually would yield figs, and therefore, if he cut it off, he died. Oy, 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 oy. So now the Meforshim here explain, the Amshel Shlomo and others, they ask a question, and I'm going to answer the question later. The question is, why did he do it? If you say that was his only sin, so he was a very, very pious man, he was a gadol, he was the son of an Amora, probably Amora himself, so why did he really cut it off? How could he do it? Yeah, that's a question. Yeah, in other words, and he died because of that. He did it bemazed. Why? Cutting off the tree is such a big Yetzer Hara. It's a woman. Well, what's the story? So we're going to answer that later. I want to tell you already now, actually. That the entire sugya of cutting off trees, and once Rav Char spoke about it, has 2, if not 3 layers, like a trunk. In other words, there's a sugya of Meikar Adin. We're going to learn the halachas now of what's considered destroying the tree. We actually learned already. If I have a palm tree and I can look and see that this palm tree is very shvach and does not yield more than 1.38 kilos, only 1 kilo, then I'm allowed to cut it off, right? It's not called baltashchis, it's more worthwhile to use the lulav, the decal for other things. Maybe I want to eat the inside of it, which is very tasty. It's called hearts of palm. We have it every Shalosh Shudas, palmitos. So maybe it's good to have that and not have the fruit. Halachically, it's okay. However, there's another layer here that when it comes to cutting off trees, surprisingly, after this halacha, there's a whole new level here of things that even though you may allow to do it Meikar Adin, it may be allowed halachically, it's still ashkafically, mitzad sakana, it's osur. The Taz asks the question on the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention this halacha of the tree. And the Taz says, why doesn't the Shulchan Aruch mention it? Because it's a sakana. He should mention the sakana. So then other Achronim say, why is it a sakana? It's osur. If it's osur to do baltashchis, it's not a sakana, it's osur. Why aren't you allowed to eat chazir? Because it's a sakana? No, because it's osur, it's not a sakana. Elamai, the answer is as follows. Me'ikar Adin, you have all kinds of rules and calculations. You look at the tree, Alan, you climb up the tree and you measure and you see if it's 1.38 or 1.3. It may be okay to cut off the tree if it's not a very successful fruit-bearing tree. But to fell a tree, even if of fruit tree, even though me'ikar Adin it's okay, may cause a sakana to the person. And that already gave you the answer. That's what happened to poor young Shikchas. Shikchas or Shivchas, he did something that was allowed. Why did he die? Because it's a sakana. Just like it's a sakana to eat fish with meat. Fish with meat, there's no meeting of the minds. The fish and the meat, they meet. And it's halachically would be okay, but we're very careful about it. Not as much as milk and meat, but we're careful. Why is that? Because it's a sakana. I never saw tsaras happening. It's a sakana ruchni summer, which we, for Baruch Hashem, we don't know everything. Same thing here is to cut off the tree may be a sakana even in cases where it's allowed. And that is, according to one of the chronim that I saw, I think I'm Shlomo, that is the business of shivchas. And I think the Yavitz talks about it also. A third layer, I'm already giving it all now. I'm giving you the last page of the page turner. There's a third layer here, and that's called Tzavos Rabbi Chosid. Rabbi Chosid, yeah, who lived in Germany, and he made many takonos, which obviously his own takonos, which didn't exist before. All kinds of things. Two brothers should live together in the same city. A brother, son-in-law, father-in-law should not have the same name. All these things, Rabbi Chosid. Some of them people keep, some don't. One of the Tzavos Rabbi Chosid is what? Is not a kara tree. The question is, what does he have to tell us? Not a kara tree. It's a portion of the Torah. It's in Parshas Kiseitze. What is it? That's the answer. Even if there's no sakana, even if it's a layer of way and above the halacha, still they're allowed to cut off the fruit tree. So before you cut off a fruit tree because you say, it's important, it's justifiable because I'm building a building, ask your local Orthodox rabbi, and it's not simple at all. Because there are layers here of ruchnius, of cutting the tree. It's like killing a person to an extent. Oh, you see, we're so green. We're tree-hugging people. You kill a tree, you kill a person. That's only fruit-bearing tree. Yeah, we should have this in YouTube. A lot of people should view this. Yeah. So basically, a man is like a tree is like a man. So to cut off a tree is not a simple thing, even if you follow the actual cold rules of halacha. Amar Ravina. Now we're back to halacha. We're not talking about sakana anymore. What's me'ula bedomim? Let's talk about olive tree. You do agree with me, my esteemed colleague Peretz, that an olive tree can be used for woodwork, for furniture. Yes, that I know. People make a lot of things from olive, all kinds of arts from an olive tree. Is that allowed? How can they cut the olive tree? It bears fruit. Answers the Gemara, me'ula bedomim mutar, which means it's all about three things: kesef, money, and geld. Which means if that olive tree is no good news, nothing to write home about when it comes to the olives. The olives may, yes, be, the amount of olives may, yes, be more than a kav, but they're not such high quality, they're not amazing, nobody buys them, it's not such, and the trunk of that zayis, of that olive tree, wow, happens to be big, strong, amazing. I can actually make much more money from making all kinds of artwork and woodwork from the olive tree's trunk and branches, much more than the fruit, yeah? So then it's allowed. It's not called hashchasa. It's not called a destruction, useless destruction. It's normal, healthy business sense. Me'ule bedomim. The level, the money is me'ule, is more than the fruit. The wood is worth more than the fruit, then it's allowed. Tani nami hachi, a brisa to support that. And now we're going to have to read the pasuk in the Torah, which is the source of this entire sugya. I'm reading you the entire pasuk, which some of you have it in the Gemara on the side. It says in the Torah, yeah, those of you have the Torah or with the entire pasuk, those of you don't, so no. The article does have it as far as I remember. Only that we're talking about what? 1 second, let's give the background. Where does the Torah tell you? In which context? Riddle, quiz time. Yeah, whoever knows gets a trip to Hawaii. Yep. Anyway, in which context does the Torah tell you not to cut off a tree? Very nice. We're besieging a city. Exactly. You want to besiege Kiev? You want to besiege Gaza, and the best thing you have are trees. You want to make a wooden wall around the city. You put it under siege, and you have trees growing outside the city. Says the Torah, the superficial reading of the Torah is, don't use the fruit tree, don't use the cherry tree or the olive tree in order to cut them and create the siege. Yeah. Elamai, use the oak or the fir tree or those trees that are not fruit-bearing trees. Okay. But look at the pasuk carefully, as we always do. Says the Torah, "Rak etz hashotei kilo etz machalu." Only the tree that you know that is not a fruit-bearing tree. It's twice the word tree. Etz is tree appears twice, which is redundant. So this one you're allowed to destroy. The karata, you can sever it, you can cut it, you can fell it. And you can build a matzor. What's a matzor? A siege. You're allowed to create the siege. The wall, battery, siege tower. The siege is the wall that you are besieging the city with. Yeah, that's called matzor. A siege. that you're allowed to do only to create only from fruit that are not fruit-bearing trees. However, it's not so simple. Continues the Gemara. Tani nami achi. We do with 3 lines from bottom of the page. We do learn from Baruch Hashem from this pasuk. We learn that sometimes you are allowed to cut off a fruit-bearing tree, an eitz machal. How do you see? It says rak eitz shoteda. It says rak eitz shoteda. If you followed my reading of the pasuk, the first time it says etz is redundant. You already said etz. Twice you have to say etz, which is not fruit-bearing. Therefore, says the Torah, the first etz, the ilan ma'achal. Wow. You are allowed to take the cherry tree, olive tree, I don't know, whichever tree, cut it off, the apple tree, I don't know, cut it off the trunk and use it for the siege. Interesting. Okay, let's just leave that aside. Kilo etz ma'achalhu zeilan sak. Here comes the Torah, says, lo etz ma'achal. You can also take, an etz which is not ma'achal, ilan srak. Srak in Hebrew means what? Non-fruit bearing, whatever, the oak, the fir, the whichever one, the cedar tree. Wait a second. If you're really telling me that both the olive tree, olive tree and oak tree are both okay, so why does the Torah go into details and says the one who doesn't have fruit? Why? Just say, take any tree, finish the story. Why did you have to compartmentalize? Why did you have to make 2 groups? The one with the fruit, without the one without the fruit. Just say any tree and finish the story. Elamai, there is a preference here. Lehakdim srak lemachal, to prioritize, to tell me lehakdim. If you have 2 trees in front of you, one oak, one olive, which one should you prefer to cut off, to fell and create the wall? Which one? The oak and not the olive. It should be your preference because the Torah is being more detailed and mefurish when it comes to the non-fruit bearing. What about if the olive tree, when it comes to its fruit, excuse my language, really stinks? Those olives are really not worth much. And the tree itself, what a trunk. That can be an amazing siege. No missile from Gaza can actually hit it. Very choshev trunk. Even in that case, we say that the olive tree should not be cut and the oak tree should go first. Talmud loymar rak. Because the Torah at the beginning says rak etz ma'achal. What's the word only? Only comes to minimize, to exclude, and tell me, to qualify, and tell me not every fruit-bearing tree is not so good to cut off. Only the fruit-bearing tree that has good fruit and the fruit's worth more than the trunk, more than the wood, those should only be second best and should go for the oak. But if the oak tree and the olive tree, and that olive tree happens to be no good news, that olive tree is only good for the trunk much more than the fruit, then it's exactly equal to the oak tree. Let's repeat, let's revise. Again, you come near your city of whatever you want to besiege, the city of the enemy. What? Chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom. You come to the city of whoever of Gaza, and you can manage, they'll be very scared if you circle them if you besiege them with the trees. So again, if you have a good choshev cherry tree, olive tree, when I say good, it bears fruit that's more than 1.3 kilo, 2.4. You should ask Chazoni, Shapchaim Noy, and they're better than the trunk, money-wise. Then what? Then, if you have a nilan srak, an oak or a fir or whichever one, then you should use the non-fruit bearing, and the fruit bearing comes second. Only if you have no other choice, then you prioritize. But if the fruit tree is no good news, the trunk is worth more than the fruit, then it's keilu ilan srak. It's considered as a non-fruit bearing tree because at the end of the day, its fruit are worth less than the trunk. It's kilo an oak, it's kilo fir tree, it's kilo cedar tree, it's kilo whichever one. There are many trees in the world, and it's not considered as anything. Mimela, we see that that's halacha. However, we said besides that, there is a sakana issue. The sakana, if you cut off the tree, and afterwards, if you behave nicely, I'm joking, then what? I'll tell you a very interesting story, which I think I told you one about something that happened in Belgium, and about somebody cut off a tree. Very interesting story. As Schar said, yes, don't tell me that. Yeah, we have to get to the Mishnah to finish the thing, but I'll listen to your question. Shmuel, story time, Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. Shmuel, the Heilige Amoyre. Aisila Arise Tamri, is aris. Aris is basically the field worker, field laborer, which works by percentage. The kids, so the guy works in his field, brought him tmorim. What are tmorim? I think the dates, right? Ochil. Shmuel had the dates, living in Bavel, very common. Toim b'utama dechamra, and he tasted within the tmorim the taste of wine. Hey, genetically engineered, right? That sounds like, a new flavor from Osem, cherry flavored lemon kind of thing. So basically, he ate the tmorim and he tasted with him like the aroma, the taste of wine. Amarle, my high, what's going on over here? Dear Aris, what is this wine flavored tmorim? Are we in 2022? Amarle, beini gufni kaimi. Those palm trees with the dates, they exist, they are between the gfanim. They are planted between the geffen, between the vines. Mimela, the vine is mashpia, gives its taste to the tmorim, and you feel the taste in the tmorim. Omar, he said, oh, makrishi b'chamra kuli hai. If so, the palm trees, they make the vine weaker that much. They make it that much weaker. In other words, being parasites, because what's the name? The palm trees are taking energy from the vine. I can say the other way around too. No, because the palm tree is worth less than the vine. Mimela, the vine is being what is deteriorating in value because of its bad neighbor, the tamar, because the tamar is worth less than the geffen. Therefore, he told him, Lamachar, tomorrow commands Shmuel to his Aris. Tomorrow I want you, I you. Tomorrow I want you to come and bring me what I told you before. You thought it's a joke. Bring me the kore. I think the English word core comes from there. You know what's kore? Kore of the lulav. Kore also means the middle, the core of the palm tree. The palm tree, some of them, and they grow today in South America, thousands of them, and the middle of the palm tree is very tasty. It's called hearts of palm. Basically, what Shmuel told him is, tomorrow I want you to cut off all the palm trees because they disturb the vine, which is also, it's a money thing. The vine is worth more than the dekel. If the dekel is worth more, it's all about calculation and business sense here that derives the halacha. And Mimela cut off the palm trees and prove it to me by bringing me tomorrow the hearts of palm, which you can only get if you cut the entire thing. It's big shal in brachas daf lamed vav, I think. It says over there, which bracha do you make? Adoma, shakol, lemaisa. Today we pass in Adoma, but that's the thing. Let me get to the Mishnah. Let me get to the Mishnah, and then you'll get your questions and my story about Antwerpen. Rav Chizda Chaza Tali Bei Gufni. Rav Chizda saw Tali. Tali, you know who she is? Tali. Tali is a palm tree, a small palm tree. Bei Gufni. He saw that amongst his vines, all of a sudden grows Tali, the palm trees. Omar Larisa, he told the Oris, he told the field laborer, Akrinu, you should eradicate them, should cut them off, pull them out. What? Which ones? Of course, the Dkolim. The Dkolim are worth less. Gufni, Kani Dikli. Dikli, Loy Kani Gufni. The Gfanim, they buy out the Dkolim. The Gfanim are worth more than the Dkolim. The Dkolim are not worth as much as the Geffen. So it's not called Baltashchis if I destroy a tree, because that's what helps the other tree, which is worth more, to grow better. It's all about numbers. It's all about dollars and cents at the end of the day. It's not like an isters of itself, and Mimela you're allowed to do it. So here you see that it did cut it, and it was not a sakana. Interesting. There's a queue, sir, and Baruch, and then you, or then you're after Baruch and before him. Yeah, I'm listening to every word you say. Okay. Once upon a time, yeah, okay. Once upon a time, in a nice European city called Antwerp. So the kids are in the kollel there in Antwerp. They created the kollel or something. They wanted to bring Avraham there, and there was one building which they rented or built or bought or something for all the Avraham to live in one building. And none of them had children. They were only young couples, and for good 2 years, all the families in the building, I believe it was Harsh because he's a very reliable source, and none of them had children. I don't know if they had children from before, but from that point onwards, once it's moved into the building, nobody had kids, and they started realizing that's obviously not mikre. So they looked and all kinds of, cheshbon and nefesh, and eventually they found out that in order to build the building, they cut off a tree. You remember that? They cut off a fruit-bearing tree. I guess in an oifen it was not allowed, or maybe allowed, because you can say well, the building is worth more than the tree. They do say that you can cut off a fruit tree if you plant it somewhere else. That's not just a new Western idea. It says it's in halacha. Transplanting, exactly. Yeah. So you're right. And Mimela, that could also be an answer for the story of Rav Chizda. Could be said, cut them off and plant them somewhere else. Or although the story of Shmuel would not be good because he said to eat the palm trees. So that means no. So I don't know. But Lamaisa, once I don't know, they did some kind of tikkun, or they replanted the tree. They did something to help the tree. Whichever, I don't know. They did something, then they had children. But clearly, or they did a tikkun, tshuva, I don't know. But the idea was, no, it's Lamaisa, it's mida keneged mida. Why did Shikchas die young? Because he killed the tree, that's why he died. It's killed mida keneged mida. They could not have children, which is a person's fruit, because they cut off the fruit of the fruit tree. That's what has to do with life, of giving birth to children or long life has to do with cutting off the tree. That says the Mishnah. Speaking of Mechila, that's right on the heels of our Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph, Afal pi shunois and loy. A person gave money to the victim that he put into shame, and possibly other things as well. Ein nimchaloi, still not forgiven by Hashem, ad shivakish mimeno, which means to give the money. Let's say somebody slapped somebody in the middle of the street, lachar yodo, and he gave him 400 zuz. He says, take your 400 zuz, goodbye, okay? That's the interaction. No asking mechila, no asking personal forgiveness from the victim. So Hashem would not forgive you unless you ask mechila from the person. Besides the money, there also has to be a verbal, sincere, bakashas mechila, asking for forgiveness, and the person should forgive you, hopefully, and he should not be too achzar. He should also forgive you, and then Hashem will forgive the aggressor. How do you know? Shenema. By the way, it's interesting. This appears here and not in Yuma. This is a lacha which we all know about Yom Kippur, and it appears here in Bava Kama. We're not going now to the details. We will go to details in the Gemara. That is the story of Avraham and Abimelech, Avraham and Avimelech. What happened? Avimelech took sorrow, and then Hashem told Avimelech in the dream, the night of Avimelech was holy enough to converse with Hashem, and Hashem told him, return that woman to her husband, and what? And he will daven for you to heal you from the disease of you not being able to go to toilet. Yeah. So Hashem said you should ask forgiveness from Avraham. It's not enough only to give him sorrow back and say, okay, here she is, goodbye. But to say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize she was your wife. I'm so sorry about that. Take her back, and I ask for forgiveness. And let's say the person does not forgive. How do you know he's a chzori? How do you know that the person who was offended once asked mechila should forgive, and otherwise is considered to be achzar? What's achzar? Cruel. It's cruelty not to forgive. Avram right away did not, keep tabs and kept cheshbonis. Avram actually right away davened to Hashem. And Hashem healed Abimelech. Now comes another part of the Mishnah. What about a person who tells you, you have every permission in the world, take the liberty, you're allowed to make me blind. Yeah, the guy is, I don't know, masochistic, you can cut off my hand and that's okay with me. Can you do that? Do you have to pay him? Says the Mishnah, the guy tells you, you can blind my eye. That's okay, no problem. You can blind my eye. Chofshi, chofshi. Tais yodi, you can cut off my hand, no problem. Shaber ragli, you can cut off, you can cut my foot, my leg, it's a poilisha. Chayev, you're chayev. Even though he gave you permission, you still have to pay him once you did it. If he takes you to Beis Din and he says he cut off my leg, you still have to pay him. Why? We're going to see in the Gemara, not today. We're going to see why. Generally speaking, a person is not moichel really his own body. It's not real mechila. Now the Mishnah is going to go to a higher level. Al menas liftor. Let's say you're not stupid. You brought your lawyer along and you brought the two Eidim, and he said, al menas liftor. Al menas liftor. What does that mean? You can cut off my hand. And you said, will you take me to Beis Din? No, al menas liftor. With the condition you'll be potter. Still chayiv. When it comes to bodily harm of cutting off his leg, cutting off his foot, we still assume, don't ask me about it because it's not the issue now. That's just the Mishnah. The Gemara will talk about it later. If it's bodily injury, especially injury which is irreparable, Even if the person said he doesn't realize what he's saying, it's not real mechila. So even though I said, yeah, you can make me blind and I will never take you to Beis Din, al menas liftor, he still can take you to Beis Din and you'll have to pay him. Because there's no mechila over a person's own body. However, that's when it comes to body injury. But kra es susi, a person says, tear off my clothes, no problem. You can kra my shirt, I have a new white shirt, silk shirt, you can tear it, no problem. Shaberes kadi, no, yeah, you can break my card, you can break my vase, break my jar, no problem. Chayiv. He's chayiv. He did not say break it and I'll forgive you, politician. You can break it. It doesn't say that I will never sue you. You chayiv to pay if it takes you to Beis Din. But al menas lifto potu. Oh, the only case you potter is the guy. The Gemara will explain the conversation. Who's asking who? I'm giving you now the general picture because it's just a Mishnah. But basically, the one case out of 4 when you are out of trouble is if the person says, "Hey, come on, you can break my jug, no problem. Break my jug. No, don't actually break my jug." And you say, "Are you going to take me to Beis Din?" No. A potter. I promise you, I have no claims against you. Then you're potter. If it's only property and not body, and the victim, so to speak, said, "I am moichel, I'm not your potter," then you're potter, and you don't have to pay. Otherwise, no. That is not enough. No questions about it. I'm sorry. It's chaval. It's tomorrow's daf, so it's everything will be explained tomorrow or in 2 days' time in daf to the Gimel Modal. Aseken leish ploini al menas lifto. He's the ringleader. He's the mafioso. Reuben tells Shimon, go hit Levi. Go hit Levi or go hit him or his property. Do that to Levi. Al menas lifto. What do you mean al menas lifto? How can Reuben say there's going to be potter? Reuben told Shimon, Reuben is the Kochalefel, Reuben is one initiating the issue here. Yeah, the instigator, thank you. And Shimon is his sidekick, and he tells Shimon, you do this to Levi and I'll pay. Reuben is a rich guy. If he takes to Beis Din, I'll pay. My mafia, my gang has a lot of money. So you hit Levi or you break his thing, whatever you do to Levi, Reuben, I will pay. You know who has to pay at the end of the day? Shimon. Why? Ein, say it in nice Hebrew. Ein shliach ledvar avera. Ein shliach ledvar avera. Which means if you are someone's messenger to do a bad thing, it's your issue, not him. He's the instigator, not a nice guy. No shidduch from my daughter. But the Maisi, you did it, you have to pay. Says the Mishnah Chayev. Who's Chayev? Shimon is Chayev. The one who actually did the act is Chayev. Reuben told you. What do you mean Reuben told you? Hashem told you otherwise. Whether it's a bodily harm or property, you chayiv in both cases. Tanu Rabbanon, says the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanon. Kol elu she'omru dmei boishtoi. What's kol elu she'omru? All this entire. Remember the price list of the previous Mishnah? If you smack over here, it's 100 zuz, and a smack is 200. And if it's a strong smack or spitting or uncovering, is 400 zuz, the whole price list of the busha, that is dmei boishtoi. That's the cold price list of how much you pay for putting someone through embarrassment. Aval tsaroi, the tsar, says Rashi, is the doeg al boishtoi. The person is worried about the boishes. There's an internal shame and embarrassment that the person has inside, and money just won't do that. The person was put into shame, and he still feels terrible that it was put into shame, even though he got the money. Even if the person, the aggressor, brought all kinds of korbanos, I don't know, nevios is like some kind of fancy rams. He brought rams to Beis Hamikdash to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Hashem. I bring in korbanos because I spat on my friend, or I uncovered her hair, or I uncovered his talis." Doesn't help. Hashem does not forgive you. You have to ask the person himself. The person who's the victim, he is the one who has to forgive you, not Hashem. You also have to ask Hashem. But Hashem says, it's not my business. What do you want from me? Speak to the guy. He's the one who's not forgiving you inside. Just because you paid him doesn't necessarily mean he forgives you. Yeah, emotionally. You have to ask his mechila, and then we're going to talk about mechila to Hashem. Shenema, how do you know that? Hashav eshes ha'ish. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avimelech in the dream of night, please return that eshes ha'ish. Kinovi who, because he's a Navi, you should know you're messing up with the wrong guy. He's a Navi, he's a prophet. He's Palal Badcho. And then he'll pray for you that your disease, who brought him the disease? Hashem, of course. That your disease of unable to go to toilet or function, he'll daven for you. Frag the Gemara, excuse me, what did you just say? Because he's a prophet, that's why you have to return his wife? And if he was a street cleaner, then he's allowed to mess up with his wife? What's his hierarchy over here? Oh, he's a frumi, he's an ovi, he's a gadol. Don't take his wife. Says the Gemara, the eshes novi by ahaduri, eshes acher, lo by ahaduri. Only because he's a novi by ahaduri, you have to return her. And had she been the wife of another person, a regular layman, of a street toilet cleaner, you don't have to return her. You got it wrong. First of all, eshes ish is something you should refrain from, because even though your name is Avimelech Mackenzie, Goyim are not allowed to be chayt with eshes ish. Really, none of them does. You know, nowadays they all stay away from each other's wives. Of course, no such thing happened today. But you know, yeah, Mikol Mokoim, you're a guy, any eshes ish, you should return to her husband straight away. He didn't, by the way, obviously do anything to her because he couldn't. Yeah, anyways, yeah. Now, Avimelech, that part of the conversation we didn't yet talk about. Avimelech had kindness against Avraham and against the Kodesh Baruch Hu. What did Avimelech say, the righteous man? Are you going to kill a regular man with a tzaddik? I'm a tzaddik. Why is he a tzaddik? Look, he said she's his sister. They both collaborated. They said they faked it, you know, as if they posed as a brother and sister. I thought she's a sister. That's why I did it. I thought she was a single girl, a good shidduch. So it's not my fault. On that, Hashem replied a very, very sharp reply. Unbelievable. Novihu. That's what you say? You should know he's a Novi. So what? The Kvarlimed of Avraham Avinu being a Novi, he taught you goyim. Avraham Avinu had a lot of influence over everybody around him. He's the most influential person in the Torah over his goyish surroundings, right? Avraham Avinu taught you people, humanity. What did he teach you? And he should have known better. This is a very, you know, stingy kind of answer. A guest comes to town, a new guest in town, a gast in Stott, a new guest in town. What kind of questions are you asking him? Doesn't occur to you to first ask the person, do you have where to eat? Do you have where to drink? Can you offer you some help? That should be your question. And you asked him, hey, that girl over there, are you married to her? Or in other words, why did you ask him those? You're leering at her, asking questions about her marital status, not because you're Misrad Pnim, because you want to have fun with a girl. Is that where your mind is going? You're blaming him for lying to you. First of all, it wasn't a lie, because she was like his sister. She was a niece, which is nothing like a sister. But first of all, what kind of mind you have? You posed the wrong question, which would endanger him also. Because if she said she's my wife, you'd kill him. So you're asking him all these tight questions, cornering him with your princess-dick mind. Now you say, oh, he's the one, it's the rabbi who lied. Why did the rabbi lie? Because you made him lie. Because you have a dirty mind and you are giving him this option choice. That's a problem. Ebenoach should have been killed. Ebenoach should be killed. Wow. In other words, Hashem said, if you don't give her back, I'll kill you, said the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Novi means he's the one who taught you through his nevuah how to behave. And you should have known better. Don't start saying he's a liar. Think where the root of the lie came from. Don't ask questions that beg lies. And Mimela, that's really your fault. You should have learned better. And a Ben Noach, that, because you could say, a Ben Noach was, that's very negative today. Any guy, which is potential Ben Noach, any guy, because he grew up in a society where Ish is very rampant. We say, no, you should have known better. A Ben Noach should have learned basic morals. Sheva mitzvahs Ben Noach are not a big chiddush. I'm saying they're all basic human morals. Everyone around has affairs and business, and I don't know, they kill or do over the Zohar. So what? You should have known better. And therefore, Ben Noach is chayv misa for breaking any of the Sheva mitzvahs Ben Noach, because he could have learned better, and he didn't. And that's what we learn from Abimelech. And Ellen Rubinstein has a question, and then Shona. It says that Hashem stopped, like congested, blocked. Hashem blocked the orifices of who? Of Avimelech and his family. What's Atzor? Atzar? Well, it's surely. He surely stopped. I don't know. It's not surely congested. Surely, you know, Shirley? Nice girl. Yatzor Atzar Hashem. Amar Blozor. Shte Atziros Halalu Lama. Why does the Torah have to tell me twice the verb Atzar? Stop, blocked, congested. Achas Beish. There's one Atzira in a man, Shich Vazera. All men could not function. They couldn't have the Zera, the sperm coming out. Shtayim Beisha. And for every woman in the household of Avimelech, there were two stopping. Shich Vazera. A woman, the Shich Vazera from the man would not come out, like the leftover wouldn't come out. Beleda and birth, the women, even if they were due, they wouldn't be able to give birth. Terrible. The baby wants to come out and they can't give birth. So women will always be double as the men. The Masnisa Tana, now we're going to start the inflation. Shtayim Beish. The Masnisa says there were two blockages by the men. Shich Vazera Viktanim. Shich Vazera and Tanim, you know, urine. Shloisha Beisha. And a woman had three. Shich Vazera Viktanim, Veleda. A woman always had once more than a man, birth. One more always, because a woman gives birth, even 2022, men cannot give birth, you know. Ravina Omar, big surprise. Ravina Omar, Sholosh Beish, three by men, Shich Vazera Viktanim, Pita Bas, Doilim, you know, from behind. You know, can't go to toilet. Arba Beisha, Shich Vazera, Veleda Viktanim, Pita Bas. I didn't see in the unfortunate what's this about. Well, Lamaisa, there was a matzav of stopping, and there's something which I'll tell you offline. Right, we haven't done yet. The ad kol rechem. Hashem stopped every rechem, every womb, every uterus in this household of Avimelech stopped. Amri dever Rabbi Yanai, afilu ternegoyle shel beis Avimelech lo itila beitzoso. Even the hen of Avimelech's household, yeah, in the chicken coop, even she could not lay an egg. Where is this Gemara also similar? When they stopped the Yetzer Hara in Sanhedrin Samudaf Dam Dalef, they wanted to stop the Yetzer Hara of Arias. That would be amazing, you know, no Yetzer Hara of Arias, but then people couldn't function as husband and wife. Even the Ternegoyles couldn't lay an egg. Because why? Because that's it. There's no birth, no warmth, and no functional. Amalei Rovel Rabba Barmari. Famous line, Rava es Rabba Barmari. Minoha Milsa, what is the source, the Omer Rabbanon, to that statement of Rabbanon? Somebody who asks Rachamim for his friend, somebody beseeches Hashem on behalf of his friend, and he needs the same thing. Get it? Two families both need children, they do it all the time. I think there's a website, right, in America. I mean, right? It's called, yeah, like you don't have a child, he doesn't have a child, you're davening for each other, daven for me, and I'll daven for you. There's a song like that, even I saw once, yeah? So basically, you daven for the other person for health, atzloch, refuah, your kid should get back on the derech. Yeah, the one who davens for his friend is answered before his friend. Well, if they both daven for each other, then I'm not sure who gets there first. But Lamaisa, if you daven for your friend and you need the same thing, Hashem will answer to you first. What's the source? It's a very nice, moving idea. Oh, but what's the source in the Torah? Answers Rabbi Bar Mari. It says, "Hashem shav shvus iyod." When did Hashem stop Eov? You know, Eov is called Job. That's his real name in Hebrew. Job. He had a good job, yeah? So Eov, yeah? When did his terrible Yisurim stop? When did it come to an end? When he davened for his friends. Hashem was angry with two out of his three friends, then a fourth one came, because they criticized him. And Hashem said, what? He's amazing. He's not complaining, and he's going through hell, and you're still criticizing him? How unaccepting can you be? So Hashem wanted to punish his friends. Then Eov davened for his friends, and then Hashem stopped Eov's Yisurim. And then everything was amazing, happy ever after. It all was very, very good at the end of his life, because Eov davens for his friends. Omar Lei, Sarova replied to Abu Bamari, At Omar Tmeosam, you say that's a source? I'm telling you a different source. Avraham davened to Hashem to heal Avimelech, and so it happened. Yeah, Hashem gave Sor a child, like he said, just like Avraham davens for Avimelech to have it open, to keep functioning and having children, so too Hashem, Mimela, gave Sarah a child which was Isaac. She was promised Yitzchak beforehand on Pesach. Answers Tosfos, It wasn't a promise to have a child. They were promised a child way before. It's easy birth. Sarah's birth of Yitzchak at the age of 90 was easy birth. How could you have easy birth such an age, so old and so this? That was beseeches that Avraham davened to Hashem for Avimelech, that everything will be open and smooth and fluid by him and his wives and chulei. So Hashem gave easy birth to Sarah. Questions and comments are very welcome now at 10:26. That's what Torah says. That has to be by default what happened. The etzem birth, the fact that the child was promised when the three malachim came to him. That's not news now. Oh, it also makes sense. He said everything should be open and easy and not stop. So to her birth was flowing, was epidural.